What's up, you beauties? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking back at one of the recent NHL drafts, 2021. Now in 2021, maybe you guys remember, maybe you don't, but it was definitely a strange time for the NHL and just for hockey fans in general. And for this draft specifically being held remotely, if you look back on it, it was one of the more strange times to kind of watch these players get invited to play into the NHL and join their first organization. So now with a lot of these players getting themselves their first real contracts and making an impact for their respective organizations, I thought it would be fun to go back and redraft the top 10 players from that year. Now these players, some of them have become huge successes for their franchises, but some other ones, well, they haven't exactly lived up to expectations yet. But when we're focusing on this list, just remember a lot of these guys are still incredibly young and there's still a lot of time for them to develop. So don't just write off these players completely, but there are just some players who probably should have been taken above some of the guys on this list. So if you guys have been enjoying the content lately and you want to follow along with this channel some more, make sure you hit that like button now and subscribe to the channel. It'll let you know whenever I post fun new content like this. And let's get right into this one. All right, back in 2021, the first overall pick belonged to the Buffalo Sabres. And with that pick, they selected Owen Power. But in my redraft, I'm actually going to reselect Owen Power with the number 1 overall pick. Despite the Buffalo Sabres' lack of success since Power joined the team, I do feel like he has been one of the more consistent players over the past couple of seasons when we're talking about this draft. Power was pretty much a consensus first overall pick back in 2021. And I don't believe a lot of people have changed their minds since then. And as we enter the 2024-25 season, I feel like it's still pretty consensus as well. Power has put up back-to-back 30-point seasons, averaged 23 minutes of ice time throughout his tenure with the Sabres, and just signed a contract in Buffalo on a 7-year, $58.5 million extension. You could say there's a few other names that could take Power's place on this list, but I do feel like top-line defensemen are hard to come by in hockey. And when there's a talent like Power available, you just have to take him with the number 1 overall pick. I feel like with Owen Power, we have yet to see his true potential with the Buffalo Sabres, and he's already been spectacular for that organization. I had a hard time taking any other player over him. There's a few forwards out there that you could have potentially argued, but when we're talking about hard to come by top-line defensemen who are just bona fide stars, I feel like Power definitely still belongs in this position. Guys, every day I'm on my phone researching hockey to give you guys some content like this, just trying to keep up to date with the sport and all of the stuff that continues to happen. But you would not believe how many spam phone calls and texts that I get throughout the day. I mean, seriously, I'll be in the middle of researching a topic where I'll get like 4 or 5 phone calls in a row, just completely throwing off my vibe. And I know one of the big reasons we get all these spam texts and calls is because big companies can't keep our data safe. Recently, Ticketmaster was hacked and the data of 560 million users were put up for sale on the dark web. The data stolen includes full names, addresses, email addresses, phone numbers, and credit card data. At best, this could just lead to a ton of spam and you could just be annoyed, but at its very worst, this could actually lead to fraud. And what exactly is Ticketmaster doing about this? Well, honestly, nothing. They said they didn't think the hack would have any material impact on an overall business, so as a business, they're happily willing to collect our data, but do nothing about it or protect us in any way. That's why I use Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura alerts me when my data has been part of a data breach or leaked on the dark web. It gives me fast fraud alerts if anyone tries to use that data to access my credit card or my bank accounts. And it also removes my information from the data broker websites, so that way I get less spam. I also get things like transaction monitoring, a VPN, antivirus, parental controls, and a password manager, along with identity theft insurance. I get all of this in one app and at an incredibly affordable price. If my info were compromised by Ticketmaster in a data breach, I wouldn't worry because Aura is always on, always doing the hard work and keeping me safe. I'm not leaving myself or my family vulnerable to data breaches, and if you don't want to either, you can go to aura.com/JimmyHockey and try your first 2 weeks for free. I'll also leave the link in the description for you guys to check out. Again, thank you to Aura for sponsoring this video, and let's get right back into into it. At number 2, this player was originally selected 4th overall by the New Jersey Devils, but in my eyes, he probably should have been taken a little bit higher, and that's Luke Hughes. Originally, the Seattle Kraken selected Matty Beniers, who at the time was being considered as a 1st overall pick. But in my opinion, I feel like Seattle is lacking talent in a lot of areas, and while I do feel like they need a potential top-line center like Beniers, I feel even more strongly, based on my previous statement about the difficulty of finding a defenseman in this league, that Luke Hughes probably would have been the better pick. Luke Hughes is an incredibly strong skater, and his offense is what impresses me the most. His ability to break out in transition and spark a team's offense is what carries him when considering other players in this draft above him. Luke Hughes put up 47 points in his rookie season and was a finalist for the Calder Trophy last season, and while his plus minus was pretty weak, I do feel like there's a ton of potential here that would have actually worked out really well in Seattle. Based on what I think Seattle needs and just the overall impression I got from Luke Hughes last season, it was enough for me to bump him up to number 2, so that's where I'm taking him in this 2021 redraft. With the number 3 overall pick, the Anaheim Ducks originally selected Mason McTavish, who has been pretty great with them in his tenure, but I do feel like there's another forward that was very underrated in this draft that I really want to take with this number 3 pick. Don't ask me how this player fell into the Dallas Stars' hands, but it's Wyatt Johnston, who has become an incredible piece for that organization. Scouts have described Johnston as a player with many talents, a responsible forward that is great in the face-off dot, and also plays with a very quick pace that is suitable to today's game. In 2 seasons, he put up 43 and 65 points with the Stars. He's also stepped up big time in the postseason with 16 points in 19 games played. Johnston has proved that he can take on a bigger role with the team, and I feel like with the talented forward core in Anaheim, he would definitely be a great addition. Sure, they have a lot of centers, but honestly, Johnston could probably compete for that top line spot with Carlson and Zegras. That's how good he's been. I'm taking Johnston here. The potential is through the roof, and from what I saw from him in the playoffs, I feel like that's hard to come by in young guys, so I'm going to take him with the number 3 overall pick and send him to Anaheim. With the number 4 overall pick, the New Jersey Devils originally selected Luke Hughes, but with him off the board, I have them taking Mason McTavish instead. In my redraft, I'll be taking Mason McTavish just one spot below where he was actually taken. McTavish is dropping to number 4, and it's no knock to his game. He's actually a stud, and right now I feel like he's projected to be the 3rd line center for the Ducks, which seems a bit low in my opinion. McTavish truly broke out this past season with 42 points in 64 games played, and was on pace to crack 60 this year before getting injured. I was super high on McTavish originally, but I think overall he has become a very well-rounded player that can score goals and be consistent on the dot. With the Devils having Hischier and Hughes as their 1st and 2nd line centers, McTavish would be placed in a similar role that he's been playing with Anaheim, and still have some great line mates that would allow him to put up similar numbers. Seriously, if the New Jersey Devils drafted this guy instead of Luke Hughes, their center depth would be through the roof. So with the number 4 overall pick, I'm taking Mason McTavish. At number 5, the Columbus Blue Jackets originally selected Kent Johnston, who has been pretty good with the organization, but hasn't really developed as much as some of the other guys that were taken as forwards in this draft. So with the number 5 overall pick, the Blue Jackets instead will select Matty Beniers. Beniers is coming off a pretty tough sophomore season after a very impressive rookie year where he won the Calder Trophy. In that rookie season, Matty had 57 points in 80 games played, but the following he finished with 37 in 77 games played, which is a pretty significant regression. Beniers is definitely being asked to do more in Seattle as their top line center compared to Johnston and McTavish, meaning that he's getting more difficult matchups because he's their top line guy compared to the other two who are playing more of a 3rd line role. Regardless of his regression though, I think that Matty would be a stud with the Columbus Blue Jackets and would allow them to take their game to the next level, playing with other young guys in that system like Adam Fantilli. He's solid on the dot and clearly he has the goal scoring ability after potting 24 as a rookie. He just signed that 7x7 deal with Seattle this offseason, which shows that that organization has a lot of faith in this player. Matty does fall in this draft a little bit for me. I do think that the potential is still there though, so I'm taking him number 5 overall. I feel like he would be the perfect fit with the Columbus Blue Jackets. With the number 6 overall pick, the Detroit Red Wings selected Simone Edvinsson, but instead I actually have them taking a different prospect with this pick. Instead of taking Edvinsson, I have them taking Brandt Clark, who was originally drafted by the LA Kings. Clearly, the Detroit Red Wings need to improve their defense, so no matter what, selecting a defenseman is the best option here. But I'm a bit higher on Clark than I am Edvinsson. Over his 2 years in the OHL, Clark had 84 points and a plus 53 rating in a combined 43 regular season and playoff games. He completely changed the look of that Colts team, and while his game hasn't exactly translated to the NHL yet, I'm still a firm believer that he's going to eventually adjust. He was completely dominant in his time with the Colts and had one of the best under 21 seasons by a defenseman in AHL history. I believe that the Kings drafted a huge stud with this pick, so instead of taking Edvinsson, I feel like going to the Red Wings would be a great option for Clark. I believe that the Kings made one of the better choices when it comes to defensemen in this draft, and I feel like if the Red Wings took Clark instead of Edvinsson, he would be a huge addition not only to their blue line, but would help out with their power play a lot as well. Next up, the San Jose Sharks, like other teams in this draft, were most likely looking to improve their defense, but with their pick, I feel like they need to go with a bit of a different direction in this one. Eventually, the Sharks would draft Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith for their offense, but I have them actually taking Logan Stankoven with this 7th overall pick instead of William Eklund. Another promising player taken by the Dallas Stars. I mean, seriously, every organization needs to study their draft system because they are fantastic at it. Stankoven's skill set, his style of play, strength when carrying the puck, it's all pretty exceptional. And while he hasn't had a ton of time playing in the NHL yet, when he has been called up, it's looked pretty seamless. Stankoven was taken in the 2nd round of the 2021 draft, so yes, this is a pretty big jump for him. And with Stankoven showing so much promise already while playing with the Dallas Stars, I feel like he could be a big time addition for them had they taken him with this pick instead of Eklund. With the number 8 overall pick, this is where the LA Kings originally selected Brandt Clark, but I have them going in a bit of a different direction with this pick. Instead of taking Clark because he's already off the board, I have them taking Kent Johnson instead. In a system like LA's, I feel like Johnson would show a lot of promise and maybe given a better chance of developing quicker because of the veterans on this team. I don't really love how he's been developed since being drafted. I feel like I need to see more consistency with coaching and what system he's playing in, but regardless, I still feel like he's going to progress into a productive top 6 player when it's all said and done. He averaged a point per game in his freshman season at Michigan, and there are signs with his talent level, style of play, and overall work ethic that still make me believe he can develop into a strong player. So I do have him a bit lower, but I still feel like he should be drafted in the top 10 because, like I said, with only a small sample size and for what we've seen from him, I do feel like he has a lot of potential and could still develop into a great player. So I think LA would develop him nicely, and with all of the veterans they have on this team who could really kind of mentor him, I feel like he would be a great pick at number 8 in this draft. With the number 9 overall pick, this is Utah or Arizona, whichever team you want to talk about here. I have them taking Simone Edvinsson with this pick because I do feel like him dropping this low would be a steal for this draft. Edvinsson does fall a bit, like I said, but don't let that take away from his potential as a defenseman. Utah is the newest NHL organization, and a player like Edvinsson would be a solid addition to their now revamped blue line. With the lack of players they have at that position, I could see him playing full-time for this organization this upcoming season, and like Clark, I think he would have an instant impact on this team, improving their depth, power play, and provide solid minutes. His offense is his trademark, and he's definitely something that Utah needs. Edvinsson is one of the top defensemen from this draft, and at 6'6", the ceiling for this kid is through the roof. With the number 10 overall pick in this draft, I have the Ottawa Senators taking a pretty up-and-coming forward in Matthew Knies, who was taken considerably low in this draft. Knies has actually impressed me while playing in Toronto, especially considering the fact that he's taken on such a big role playing on their top line so quickly. Now, I have him in the number 10 spot, but I do feel like I need to see a bit more from him this upcoming season. We talk about getting opportunities in this league, and Knies easily has the best one of this entire class. Assuming that he would be selected by Ottawa, I feel like he would still be playing in a great opportunity with some talented players, and I think coming off his 35-point season in 80 games, he could definitely improve and get to about 50 this year if he reaches his true potential, especially if he's healthy. As long as everything works out for him, Matthew Knies does have that talent. Knies is a top 9 winger in this league, and with Ottawa finally fixing their goaltending issues and hopefully being healthy, I feel like he would be a great addition to them because I do feel like they could use a little bit of an improvement at the winger position. Now, quickly, there's a few guys who I feel like could be taken in the top 10, like Wallstead, Eklund, Zellweger, or Sillinger. There's a lot of guys in this draft that have shown a ton of potential, so it's no knock on their game. It just kind of shows how much talent is currently coming from this year. But this is my NHL 2021 redraft. Let me know what you guys think about my opinions in the comments below, who you would take on the top 10 list and who you would bump out based on my predictions. Thank you guys for watching. As always, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I'll see you guys in the next one.